Welcome into Sports Memos Betting Podcast, section number 4, college football every game on the board with Teddy Covers, our closer. Teddy, welcome into the pod. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Drew. It's been a good month. I got no complaints here in November, other than the fact that we haven't slept all month. How about you, man?
Doing good, man. Getting after college basketball now and college football as well. It's off to a good November, so hopefully we can keep this going, man. And I know that you're seeing it well on the college football gridiron, so hopefully you can get some listeners on more winners than losers here in the last few games of the card. We got Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech up first in the ACC. We're going 187, 188 through the end of the card on this section of the podcast. Starting off first here in Lane Stadium, we got the Hokies laying 4 at home, 45 the total here, Teddy.
Yeah, and of course, these two teams playing for, in theory, a chance at a conference title. If Virginia Tech wins, they'll get Virginia next week with the conference title on the line. And that's certainly something that the ACC wouldn't mind. Let's put it that way. But when we look at, the full season versus recent form for these two teams makes a lot of sense. Pitt's been pretty good all year. All right. They've won the yardage battle in every game since opening day. And that includes Penn State, where they were 17-point dogs, and Central Florida, where they were 11-point dogs. They were dogs to Duke. And every game, literally, they've won the yardage battle. And the eye test for Pitt, I'm never impressed with them, And I bet against them last week. I lost in overtime. They weren't a right side. They weren't a wrong side. That was a coin flip type of game for Pitt. But they're pretty good on both sides of the ball. They're not elite on either. Virginia Tech's a team that, you look at them now compared to where they were in September, and they're a lot better. There was talk about Justin Fuente struggling to hold his job, and they were managed 8 turnovers through their first 4 games. And since then, it's been, the only loss they suffered is Notre Dame by 1 point. And they've been monsters ATS, 5-1 against the number, coming on like a freight train down the stretch. It's difficult for me to step in front of the Hokies at home in a game of this magnitude. They're playing good football right now, and Pitt, they're okay, but of course you're laying a price here with Virginia Tech. So it's not a game I'm going to play, Drew, but it's certainly a game with a lot of implications. And of course, when we're talking about postseason implications like this one and title considerations like this one, and two teams that aren't necessarily elite offensively, Virginia Tech's cashed 3 straight unders. Wouldn't be surprised if they cashed a 4th.
Teddy, next game up in Conference USA. I'm interested to get your opinion here. It's on my short card. But first, guys, want to remind you, this is the Sports Memo podcast, and you can check it out at sportsmemo.com. Also, wherever you're consuming your podcast. And it is simulcast on YouTube. So if you want to put a face with the voice, you can always watch it that way as well. We got Louisiana Tech at UAB, Alabama, Birmingham here. UAB -6 or -6.5 in Legion Field, 44 the total here, Teddy. Louisiana Tech, of course, getting the change at quarterback due to suspension. However, I think they're the more talented team here, Teddy, getting near 7. I think La Tech's the side. How are you viewing this one?
I agree that Louisiana Tech is the more talented of these two teams. I am very concerned with what I've been reading about Louisiana Tech. And the whole story with the suspensions last week, recognize this has now become a betting story and an investigation story because word was out in Vegas about the announcements. People were talking about it on air about the suspensions before they were announced by the school. The money started moving on Wednesday. The announcements, the money moved big time on Thursday, and the school's official announcement didn't come till Thursday night. And now all of a sudden there's a spotlight on La Tech that they don't need and they don't want. And that's a concern for me. For a team, again, all their goals were in front of them going into last week's game. And then your quarterback gets suspended and your top receiver gets suspended and you're a no-show and you get blown out. And now you got to place another team on the road. I don't want La Tech this week. And I do believe they are the more talented team. But from a situational standpoint, this one concerns me pretty significantly. Of course, UAB is going to get Tyler Johnson back this week. And with him out, they couldn't do anything. But with him in the lineup, they scored 30-plus 4 straight times. So From a pure talent, La Tech's a more talented team, and maybe this is their. Maybe they step up in a better way than they did last week, but not with my money, man. It's hard for me to get to the window backing a team like Louisiana Tech, who every goal they had in front of them just got killed, and now they got to go on the road and place a pretty good team the following week.
Wow,
So,
Teddy. Yeah,
I'll
great
pass.
info there. Yeah, great info, man. I didn't realize all of that. And you're right. Johnson coming back is a big plus for the Blazers. But that will be fun to read up on from an entertainment standpoint as well, what was going on there with Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, let me just jump in and say Johnson he's upgraded to probable. There's not a definite that he's going to play, but the market's certainly expecting him to play. Usually when the QB gets upgraded to probable midweek, he ends up suiting up.
Yeah, good point there, Teddy. Let's head to the ACC. We got Syracuse, Louisville. Louisville laying 9 in the hook at home, 63.5 the total here, Teddy.
Yeah, and this number, I wouldn't be surprised to see this number go up on game day a little bit. Louisville was an attractive choice for many bettors last week against NC State. They were an attractive choice for many bettors the previous week against Miami. That wasn't as good. But there's still a fair bit of anti-Syracuse sentiment in the market, even after they blew out Duke last week. And I know they came out of the bye, and they got the right team at the right time. And the way they did it, all right, again, that was 14-6 at halftime, 49-6 final. They ran them out in the second half. It was all ground game for Syracuse. And when Syracuse ground game gets going, it's tough. But it's tough to stop. But they're not a team that's going to erase deficits with their passing game. That's the key here, is that if Syracuse falls behind by 2 touchdowns or, they're down by 17 and all of a sudden the running game's out of the equation, they ain't coming back. That's not the way they're built. This is not I haven't been impressed with Syracuse at any point this season at the QB position. Louisville can be vulnerable to teams that can run the football, and that's a concern here. I mean, this is not a great Cardinals defense. We all love Satterfield and say, hey, a great hire, and this is, there's a program that's going in the right direction, and all of that is true. They've been a point spread winning team from where they were a year ago. They're now bowl eligible, clinched it last week with the victory over NC State. Defensively, they remain limited, and the games they're winning and covering week in, week out, they got all of them. They're winning the turnover battle. It's hard for me to lay doubles with a team that I know needs to win the turnover battle in order to cover the number, and a team that doesn't defend the run well enough to make me feel comfortable in this number. But I can certainly understand. I'd rather have Louisville here than Syracuse. Not a game that I feel strongly about.
193, 194 up next. Teddy, Houston at Tulsa. We're seeing Golden Hurricane -3 at home, 58.5 the total here, Teddy.
Yeah, and I mean, from a situational standpoint, this number looks very cheap. Okay.
Yeah.
Houston's off 3 straight losses. All right. SMU, Central Florida, Memphis, the 3 best teams in the conference. They covered twice, but they didn't win any of them. All right. They're a 3-win team at the tail end of a bad season. And defensively, they're vulnerable. And offensively, they're not trading points with better offenses. Tulsa, mentally, in a little bit of a different place. They have the same record. They're both 3-7. But Tulsa's coming off an upset win over Central Florida. They pulled the upset as 16-point dogs. And they've had a bye week after that to come back to earth and say, all right, we got our last 2 games. Let's see what we can do. We don't know yet if Smith is going to play for Tulsa at QB this week. If he does, I would expect this line to go up. And frankly, even if he doesn't, I think Tulsa might be worth a bet. That's the only way I would look in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Golden Hurricanes here. I think the number is short. We got Tennessee at Missouri up next. SEC East battle here. Mizzou laying 4, 3.5, depending where you're shopping at home. 46 the total here, Teddy.
It's so funny in November, going back and taking back a look at what September and everything was going on in September. Remember, Michigan's the worst team ever. And the Wolverines, all they've done is win games and cover point spreads. Tennessee's the worst team ever. Oh, my God, they got destroyed. BYU beat them, and Georgia State beat them, and Florida destroyed them, and Georgia destroyed them. This team's terrible. Well, since then, 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against the spread. If you've been betting on Tennessee since they were the worst team ever, you made a boatload of money. They're coming off a bye. They're coming off 3 wins, including South Carolina and Kentucky in conference play. This is a team, they're playing good football. Okay. The markets have caught up. This 5 week span of Tennessee being completely, of being an undervalued commodity is no longer the case. And that's very clear with this number. And Missouri, of course, has gone in the other direction. You remember they had the bad opener against Wyoming, and then 4 straight wins and blowout wins, and oh my God, Missouri's great. They haven't covered a spread since. They're 1-4 straight up since that span, and they've lost their last 4 in straight up fashion, and the offense isn't working. Now, they got Bryant back last week. In theory, that was supposed to do something, but it's an offense that hasn't reached 300 yards during this 4-game losing streak. That includes a loss to Vandy. They scored 7 against Kentucky. They have 6 in their last 2 games combined. Again, Georgia, Florida compared to Tennessee, no comparison. But right now, Missouri's offense is broken. I'm not going to bet on them to say, all right, it's fixed right here. It's a step down in class from Georgia and Florida, but these two teams that have headed in completely diametrically opposite roles since their starts were opposite and their back half of the campaigns have been opposite. And I don't want the team trending down. I'm not trying to catch the falling knife with Missouri right now.
Not catching the falling knife. The trend is your friend, using all of that on Tennessee this weekend. I think Tennessee's the side as well, Teddy. We head down the card here. 4 o'clock Pacific kick, 197, 198, the rotation number. Battle for the Golden Boot, talking Arkansas versus LSU, Teddy. We got LSU, I believe, laying the largest number. Maybe it's the second largest number in SEC point spread history. 43.5 here, hosting Arkansas. 69.5 the total, Teddy.
What's the name of this trophy?
Battle for the Golden Boot.
Yeah. There's great trophies. The border war on Friday night, all the rivalries. And I mean, this is my question for you. You're from SEC country. There's some real rivalries in the SEC. Is this one of them?
I like the name. I don't know. Anytime you bring in Arkansas into the SEC, I mean, obviously in the SEC, they've earned it, everything like that. It's just, it's far out there. It's a campus I actually haven't been to, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, back when Arkansas was good, Teddy, it was definitely a rivalry. But with the point spread of 43.5, not sure how much that's going to matter.
Yeah, I mean, there's no series history. I mean, the series history in the last 10 years is competitive games. It was a 7-point game last year. LSU has a Heisman candidate, and they're playing for a national title. So there's going to be a point spread tax with LSU. And the bargains are gone. And we saw it last week, they hung 716 yards of offense last week, and they didn't cover the number. Okay? That's where we're at with LSU right now. Okay? The bargains are gone. I rarely get involved in games like this. When you start talking about the point, and really, I mean, above 5 touchdowns, I rarely get involved because in those, I mean, this is a mismatch game. In theory, LSU can score on every possession. In theory, Arkansas is going to have a rough time. Arkansas has a rough time against everyone, but they fired the coach. They lost by 4 touchdowns against Western Kentucky at home before the bye. We've seen plenty of teams do this where, they're not good, but off a particularly embarrassing loss with some extra time, they hang. Too many points. If I had to play this one, I could only take Arkansas plus. This kind of reminds me of Rutgers last week, where if you hold your nose and bet it, or UMass last week, they barely hang on. But it does feel a little bit high. And we talk about the highest point spread in SEC history, or one of them. The only way I can look here is towards the dog.
And Teddy, as part of that, LSU's defense isn't exactly, top notch. And when we're talking, number 1-ish team in the country, is that something that worries you going forward with betting on LSU?
LSU's defense is national championship caliber. Okay. I disagree with the assessment that their defense isn't that good. We've seen them be in a good handful of shootouts. I don't know if their defense isn't Clemson's. I'll put it that way. the Texas game, the Vandy game, the Florida game, the Alabama game. Last week, I'm putting that in somewhat, there was a lot of garbage time in that game, it felt like. So I'm not overly concerned about it. But when we look at the betting markets and what do they factor, the flashy offenses are what gets everyone's attention. Elite defenses versus good defenses, that differential doesn't necessarily get everyone's attention. So I'm not convinced that when it comes to playoff time, I'll be looking to ride LSU. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, in your assessment on LSU's defense, I mean, I don't think it's as bad as what the rankings, depending what rankings you want to go off of, around 40th in the country. And I believe since the start of the BCS era, there's only been one national champion defense outside of the top 25 in terms of total defensive rankings. So LSU at this point in the season isn't in that category. I guess I just wanted to bring it up to you in terms of, not that rankings, especially in college football, are really all that relevant at all. But I did think that stat might have a little bit of relevance, but you don't think so?
No, I mean, LSU's defense is not as good as the truly elite defenses. Mm-hmm. I'm with you on that. They're not, and we've seen it throughout the course of the season. Their offense is pretty good, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you ask me right now, LSU's got to have, I'm just going to say it's a minimum. Obviously, the weird things could happen. If they lose this game and next week to A&M, they don't go to the SEC title game. But I have a minimum of 4 games left. Arkansas, then A&M in the regular season finale, and the SEC title game, and then what they hope to be one of 2 bowl games. If you ask me, if I bet LSU, which is more likely to be profitable, betting on LSU in all 4 of those games or against LSU in all 4 of those games, I would say the latter.
Interesting. Okay, good stuff.
The time to make money with LSU is come and gone, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. You're paying a tax on the Bayou Bengals. I would agree with you on that. We got San Jose State at our UNLV running Rebels, our hometown team here, Teddy. 7 is what they're catching at Sam Boyd Stadium. We got 65 in the hook being the total.
Well, look, I have a free play up on this game at you can read it at sportsmemo.com right now for as much detail as you want. But I made a case for San Jose State against Tony Sanchez and the Rebels. Sanchez got one more year. Fertitas came in and said, this, whatever. I don't want to give too much info away. But there was outside pressure on the program not to fire Sanchez after they didn't make a bowl last year, his 4th season on the job. He said, you get one more year. We'll give you that. There's been issues. And they have 2 wins, coming into their regular season finale. Sanchez is not going to survive this season. Their opponent, San Jose State, is pretty good, okay? We've just seen them take 2 heavyweights to the wire, and they lost both games. Now this becomes must-win for San Jose if they want to go bowling. Quarterback play, San Jose can chuck the football around. I've been impressed with this squad. They've been playing well on the road all year. They have, and there's no home field edge for UNLV at Sam Boyd Stadium. There really isn't. It'll be the last game there ever, and they're not selling out, That place will be half full, just like it always is. They'll be in the Raider Stadium next year, and nobody cares that they're going to tear Sam Boyd. I don't even know if they're tearing Sam Boyd down. I don't want UNLV, and unfortunately the market's moved. I put it out. It opened 4.5. I released the free play at 6.5. It's 7 now, unfortunately, but even at this number, and of course UNLV has a game that matters to them next week against Reno. A team they beat last year, and the arch rival from between the 2 Nevada schools. This isn't a game I trust the Rebels. San Jose or pass.
And when you said Tony Sanchez gets another year, you were referring to last year, or he's going to get next year?
Season. Yeah, no. Sanchez, this will be his last game in Las Vegas.
Okay.
I would expect. I would be shocked if he survives. Even if they upset Nevada, he's not going to make it. He'll be fired after that game.
And have you heard of any route that they're looking at taking for the next head coach?
I have not.
All right, Teddy, let's move down the line here. We got 201-202 UTEP, New Mexico State, 55.5 the total, 7 in the hook. New Mexico State laying at home.
And it's definitely worth noting. That's something that people ask me all the time. Oh, well, who's going to be the next coach wherever? Or where's this player going to land in free agency? those aren't questions that I spend any time with. I could care less. What? Give me the coach, and I'll handicap the coach. I'm not going to handicap the coaching search. That's a waste of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People ask me about free agents. Like, oh, well, where's LeBron going to sign? Like, I know.
Yeah.
No. What my skill set is. These are the players on the team. Now handicap that team. So for what it's worth, I really have no idea where the Rebels would go, and I haven't heard a whole lot of rumors. When it comes to New Mexico State, UTEP, hey, knock yourselves out. We're talking about a one-win teams, and both the wins came in competitive games against FCS foes. I don't trust the Aggies to beat anyone by margin, and I don't trust the Miners to hang with anybody. Bad defenses, bad offense. There's nothing to like about either one of these squads. And I'm sure if someone did some digging, they might find something good. I don't lay points with 1-9 teams, and I don't want a whole lot of 1-9 teams come late November. Easy pass for me.
Battle for I-10. Quick pass there. We got ODU versus MTSU. Talking Middle Tennessee State here. Kind of in a free fall overall, Teddy. And now they're having to lay 15 in Murfreesboro. 47 the total here.
Yeah, I mean, this is another game. I can tell you what, I don't want Middle Tennessee.
No,
when you lose to Rice, when you're only 11.5 point favorites against Rice, or winless, Rice was winless going into last week, and you lose that game at home. And I mean, it was bad. Rice smacked them. It's not a team with any confidence. It's not a team that's really any good. As you mentioned, they lost 4 of their last 5. They didn't have that blowout win over Florida International. That's dogs. That stands out. Like, how did that happen? How did that happen? They were +4 in turnovers that day. In fact,
it was a monsoon.
Yeah, and each of their last 2 wins, since they're only 2 wins against D1 foes this season, have come in games where they were +4 in turnovers. That's not a team I'm excited about laying with. And, I mean, Old Dominion, free fall, they haven't won since opening day. And we like them. Oh, yeah, they covered against Virginia Tech. Oh, yeah, they battled Virginia. They were up 17-0 in that game. Since leading Virginia 17-0, they got the last 28 points were Cavs points in that game. I mean, they haven't played within a touchdown of anyone except for San Antonio last week, and San Antonio's garbage. They got outgained in that contest. No, these are 2 teams I don't want. And when you get to this stage of the season, it's pretty easy. You find the Old Dominions of the world, and you find your Middle Tennessee States of the world, and they're not bet-ons. So if they're playing each other, leave it alone. Lean under, I guess, if you had to get involved. Either of these offenses do anything?
Yeah, I don't know, Teddy. I'm staying away from it. But one here that does have a little interest to me, a little bit better in terms of both teams. We got the Chanticleers and the Warhawks, talking rotation number 205, 206, Coastal Carolina at Louisiana Monroe. 5.5 Monroe laying at home, 64.5 the total here, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, Monroe as home favorite is not a good subset. It's not a good sample size. The sample size is decent. They've been, I think about 4-13 in their last 17 tries in this role. They've consistently struggled to cover numbers on this field. Although, we did see them. Who'd they beat here? It was Georgia State they beat here, and it was a good game that they played in that contest. But you on a row, since the Florida State game back in September, they've covered twice. They're not a point spread juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination. And in theory, Coastal Carolina is going to be able to run the football against them. In theory. Coastal Carolina is another team, everything's gone south for them. Decent start, rough Sun Belt campaign. And when you talk about point spread range like this one, they got to win the game or come pretty darn close. They might be able to keep the Warhawks off the field with their running game, but do I trust the Chanticleers to, notch a road victory? I don't. They've hung tough. They hung tough at Georgia Southern. They hung tough at Arkansas State, covered the number in both of those contests in competitive defeats on the highway. But when you're starting to look at track records from September and October and compare that to November road games, November just feels different. And the teams that are out of gas at a different level at this stage of the season. Not a game I'm going to get involved with.
Teddy, we got Miami at FIU, battle for the city of Miami here, 20 and a half. That's what the Hurricanes are laying, quote unquote, on the road. This one, interesting fact here, at a baseball stadium at
It's at Marlins
Marlins
Park.
Park. Yeah, so that will actually be a fun one to go to for the listeners out there in South Florida. 49 being the total, Teddy.
All right. Well, we'll get back to Florida Atlantic and Texas San Antonio next. So we skip that in the rotation. We got to talk Lane Kiffin. We get a chance to make fun of him.
Okay.
Although I'd rather have Kiffin this week than not. Miami right now is a one-way team for me. If I'm not betting on the Hurricanes, I'm leaving the game alone. Dave, when you talk about a squad that's gotten a lot better since September, Miami's a lot better, and both sides of the football, they're better. You know, the defense has been pretty good all year, but the way their ability to force turnovers, they've been forcing turnovers in bunches in recent weeks against teams that don't turn the ball over a lot. And that tells me the playmakers are making plays. But where Miami's been, the offensive line was awful in September. The quarterback play wasn't very good. And as the offensive line play has gotten better, guess what? The quarterback play has gotten better as well. I would be reluctant to step in front of the Hurricanes at Marlins Park. And look, FIU, we saw they couldn't step up in class against Florida International. You know, Middle Tennessee beat them by 33. Tulane beat them by 28. If Miami wants to play, and I think they will, I would expect a one-sided game. It'd be favorite or pass for me in this one.
Yeah, and Teddy, my mistake here. Went out of rotation over, but 207, 208 did skip the FAU at Texas San Antonio. Got 57 being the total. The Owls laying 21 on the highway. Lane Kiffin and company, the Lane train. I don't know. I don't think he's leaving Boca Raton, Teddy. I really don't.
Why would he? I mean, the whole thing.
He's making $1 million a year. And Teddy, when you watch his shows that he does in the local radio, he drives his boat up to the restaurant, does the show, eats dinner, and goes. He's living a great life down there, man. I don't think he's leaving.
And why would he? You know, the whole concept of, if you're at this program and you're only making $1 million a year, well, you're not. You know, it's like no. It's okay. You know. Yeah. He's not coaching Alabama for $6 million a year. Okay. You know, this is a good job for Lane Kiffin. And This is a Florida Atlantic team that is clicking right now, and I do not want to step in front of them. And Texas San Antonio, again, when you're talking, and somehow that team's got 4 wins. They beat Old Dominion by a point. They beat Rice. They beat UTEP. And then Incarnate Word. And, of course, if they win out, if they can beat Florida Atlantic and Louisiana Tech, they'll be bowl eligible. And we'd be making fun of them as being the worst bowl eligible team of all time. But UTSA is not a team I'm excited about putting my money on. And if I'm playing, I'm laying. I'd rather have the team that's rolling than the team that has covered some numbers in defeat. But, San Antonio, if you watch them offensively, they are a little bit rough. I'll just leave it at that. And there's a class difference between these two teams that's fully reflected in the point spread. All that said, if I'm playing, I'm laying.
Teddy, the spotlight game for most people here this weekend, although it is a 9 a.m. Pacific kick, kind of oddly enough, Penn State at Ohio State in the Horseshoe. Ohio State laying 18.5 at home, 57.5 the total, Teddy.
And it's a really hard game. I apologize. I'm not going to give you a strong opinion on this. It's not a game I'm betting. It's not a game I'm close to betting. If the line moves to Penn State, if the line moves to the next key numbers, if Ohio State's 16.5, I'm not excited about laying with Ohio State. If the line goes up to 21.5, I'm not excited about taking Penn State. I don't have a strong take on the over. I don't have a strong take on the under. I'm not playing the game, flat out. So, but we can certainly talk about it. Florida State has been. And I had the opportunity to talk just today with John Murray from the Westgate Superbook. I talked earlier in the week with Arthur DeCesar from one of the Caesars properties here in Vegas, and both of them make it very clear: Ohio State, if not Oklahoma, it's been Ohio State that's been their worst team this season. The problem they've had with Oklahoma is the betting on or against Oklahoma has hurt them. Ohio State has just been Ohio State money every week, and it's been arguably the single worst team in college football for the bookmakers. Last week, the number finally caught up with the Buckeyes in a very flat spot against Rutgers. Ohio State on paper is beating some pretty good teams. Cincinnati, Wisconsin, Florida Atlantic, we were just talking about. I mean, that's the Indiana, I guess. They haven't beat anyone as good as Penn State. All right. They haven't played anyone as good as Penn State. Does that mean I want to step in front of the Buckeyes? No. Another team where margins matter, where they've been punching in the extra touchdown all year long, where Penn State's given them a lot of trouble. And if they get the chance, the Buckeyes will not. They haven't taken it easy on anyone. They're not going to take it easy on this team. Penn State's given them fits in recent seasons. And, I mean, Penn State on the road hasn't been any good, Well, they have 17 in Iowa, and they outgained in that ballgame. They won because of a positive turnover margin. They had the game against the Michigan State where, again, they had 300 yards of offense. It was all turnovers. Against Minnesota, they lost. We haven't seen the best of the Nittany Lions outside of Happy Valley. And defensively, this team is a good notch or two down from where they've been in recent years. And we talk about Clifford, facing a real defense on the road. I don't trust Penn State to hang tough against Ohio State. And there are no more point spread bargains with the Buckeyes. So sidewise, it's an easy pass. I have a free bet on the game. Maybe I look at the over, but Penn State hasn't done enough offense against good defenses to make me comfortable with that bet. So I would say that the Nittany line, there's some correlation between the Nittany Lions and the over. I don't think Penn State can cover if this is if they're not putting up points, they ain't covering. Let's just leave it at that.
62% all sports November. That's Teddy covers numbers here. He's also 57% in the NFL last 5 years running. That's 197 and 149, 57% in the National Football League. Also NBA since this past February, 57%, 57 and 42. So made some big profits here for Teddy Covers this year. And guys, check out his page at sportsmemo.com. Got the free play up on San Jose State at UNLV. Check it out. In-depth analysis at sportsmemo.com. He's also got a bunch of plays up there right now. And this time of year, best way to get in action with Teddy, you can get his 1-year all-access pass, the rest of the season, any of that. But we got coupon code TC69 at checkout. We'll give you his 7-day all-access pass for less than $10 a day. You'll get every play in every sport he releases for just $69. TC69 is the coupon code for his 7-day all-access pass. We got another good one here in the Mountain West up next, Teddy. 3 games left in the podcast. Boise State at Utah State. We're seeing 52.5 the total here. Broncos laying 9 in the hook on the road.
Yeah, and I mean, we have question marks on the injury front for both teams that make this game an impossible handicap right now, because I know this. I'm not playing Utah State without Jordan Love, and he has had an undisclosed injury. I don't know exactly what's wrong with him, but I haven't been knocked out of the game last week, and I am not confirmed that he's going to play here. So I ain't playing I'm not playing the Aggies either way. Utah State is a very mediocre 6-win team. They're down defensively from where they were. They're down offensively from where they were, and their quarterback's banged up. But Boise's got QB situation as well, with Bachmeier as a very big question mark this week. This has been the Broncos' role. I mean, you talk about Boise as road chalk. I've got them at 66% this decade.
Wow.
In the road chalk role. So it's an extended stretch for Boise doing this. All that said, they went to San Jose State. They were life and death to win the game. They never sniffed the cover. They went to BYU. They were life and death to win the game. They lost it in straight up fashion. So that's their last 2 road games. So the long-term trend has not held for the short-term trend for Boise. And again, as a 9-win team that is looking to win by margin and impress committees and the like, the point spread bargain side of the Boise equation just simply isn't there right now. This price is a good notch too higher than my powering number, and I don't have Utah State powering particularly high.
Teddy, that was a get back game, so to speak, but the true get back degenerate special here. Up next, we got San Diego State at Hawaii, 8 p.m. Pacific kick, 11 p.m. Eastern kick. A lot of tickets likely to be written on this one. We got Hawaii Rainbow Warriors laying 2.5 or 3 on the island, 48 being the total here, Teddy.
And the winner of this game goes to the Mountain West title game.
Whoa, this is a big one, man.
It's a huge game. It's a huge game. The Mountain West, I mean, the West title is at stake. And I think San Diego State's the better of the two teams. So there's your answer. This is not a game. And again, the problem with the Aztecs, and it's a real problem, they've won over and 9 unders this year. I cashed ticket with them, clients and I cashed ticket with them last Friday against Fresno. And I mean, San Diego State dominated that game. Fresno had 1 early touchdown, and that was it. The Aztecs were thoroughly in control, moved the football up and down the field, forced 1 3-and-out after the next. But when they get in the red zone, all of a sudden, it's like there's a force field in front of the end zone for San Diego State sometimes. Last week they had a touchdown overturned, and they missed a field goal, then they had a turnover. I mean, they ended up, the whole point was that in a game they completely dominated, it was sweating, or it was a sweat right through the end of that contest. But, I mean, defensively, this team is as good as it gets in this conference. And Hawaii's offense has cooled off. We saw it last week against UNLV. And they're turning the ball over, which is a concern. And I understand how big a game it is for the Warriors. And I still would only look at the San Diego State side. I believe they are the class in this contest. If I'm playing, I want the dog.
And Teddy, why do you think the market's moving here on Hawaii from 1 to as high as 3?
The markets went against San Diego State last week against Fresno. They went against San Diego State in the UNLV game. They went against San Diego State in the Nevada game. There's been money against the Aztecs every game for the last month. So I'm not shocked.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And that's the get back game, the last game on the card. But we do have one rescheduled game here, FBS versus FBS. A game actually, Teddy, I bet personally it is a game Air Force isn't happy about rescheduling. I'll tell you that. If you look at the articles written and the quotes coming out of their camp, we're talking 217, 218. Last game on the card, early kick here. Air Force at New Mexico, 55 the total. Seeing Air Force bet up to 22.5 now. Yeah,
I mean, Air Force, very fortuitous last week against Colorado State as the Rams were going in for the spread covering touchdown. Air Force said, no, let's take that back the other way.
Oh, yeah.
Pick 6 made all the difference, ATS, in that contest. A game where they were out-yarded by Colorado State. That's 2 straight games where they failed to get, 350 yards. They'll get 350 against New Mexico.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Although, I mean, the Lobos, more than most teams, should be reasonably adept at dealing with the option because they've run a fair bit of it themselves. But this has been a bad season for New Mexico. There's nothing to like about this squad. They've lost, since beating New Mexico State back in early September. They've lost everything. They've only covered 2 point spreads during that span. And both those point spreads they covered, in games if they're losing by margin, but they snuck in under the number. They haven't won a turnover battle since week 1. It's easy to picture a scenario in which Air Force starts rolling and keeps rolling in this ball game, and New Mexico, I should say, takes another ugly loss. But I do worry a little bit about the Lobos' ability to defend the option and the fact that Air Force has struggled to execute that in recent weeks. All that said, this is another game, Drew, where if I'm playing, I only want the favorite. If I'm playing, I'm laying. I do not want the dog in this one.
Good stuff from Teddy Covers. Follow him on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. Myself on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. We got the coupon code TC69 at checkout for Teddy's 7-day all-access package. You'll get every play, every sport he releases, and he's been good of late in November, hitting good numbers here, up over 60% all sports in November, 67% in college football. He's got some college football already up on sportsmemo.com. Check out his free play as well. NBA's been good. NFL has been good. So check him out. This is a great deal, guys. TC69 at checkout for his 7-day all access package, less than $10 a day. TC69 is the coupon code. Teddy, anything else you want to throw out here before we shut this down?
So next week I'll be traveling for Thanksgiving. So I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do with the college football podcast, but we'll talk on Monday. But specifically for the college football guys, I just want to say Happy Turkey Day, guys. Enjoy the holidays, and thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And of course, you'll be here doing pods, Drew. So tell them what they got. Tell them what they got, Drew.
All right. Well, we got the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast with Minty Betts and Rob Vino up tomorrow. Then we got the Monday NFL opening line report with Teddy Covers. And then to be determined in terms of next week's podcast schedule. But we do appreciate the growth, guys. You guys sharing on your social medias and commenting on Twitter. It's awesome. Love to see the growth out there and love to see that people are enjoying the content. So hopefully more winners than losers this weekend, guys. Best of luck with your bets. And we'll talk tomorrow. NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. Best of luck, guys.